And you are here once again for SCW, the wrestling channel. You may be watching on youtube.com. You may be listening as well on podcast form. Thank you. This is This Week in Wrestling once again for you now, episode 9, touching on all things pro wrestling. We're going to be talking WWE. We're going to be talking AEW. We're going to be talking everything for you today. We've got lots of things to discuss. And of course, we've got the up-to-date news topics as well. But I'm joined in the hot seat as always by the one and only George Jones. George, how are you doing this Friday?
I'm great, thanks. Really looking forward to this. It's been another fantastic week in wrestling. So, yeah, really excited for this podcast. Should be fun.
Absolutely, and myself as well. And I tell you what, there's been some really exciting stuff even on the indie style of wrestling as well. So I'm looking forward to touching on one or two indie promotions towards the end of the video as well. But let's talk into the one that we think is the top major story over the last 24 hours that's broke. And a original story came out on Monday from WrestleVotes, and they're usually very reliable with their sources. They couldn't give out a name, but they were of belief that a superstar within WWE was no longer going to re-sign with the company. And of course, it led to everyone speculating who they think it may be. And it came out on Thursday that a lot of attention had gone towards Ricochet, to the point that he had to actually make a response himself, of course, doing the famous Leonardo DiCaprio's "I'm Not Leaving" video, which was put on his Twitter, when he went on to explain why and where has this come from. Very interesting stuff indeed, because Ricochet, of course, signed, I believe, in 2018. Many suggested that the contract could be coming up at the start of 2021. It felt like it could have been a logical choice, George. I want to know your thoughts of Ricochet, WWE. Are you happy he's staying, or would you prefer him to be going?
I would be happy if he was going, to be fair. I don't think, unfortunately, since he's come up from NXT, he's had the greatest rub. He's a fantastic wrestler. He's a great asset in the ring. I think we've kind of lost that a bit. But if he does stay, that's the main stage for him to be on. But for me, the best option for him would be a re-sign. If he's going to re-sign, put him back to NXT, really. I know it's almost looked as a discretion, or looks like he's halting his progress, but at least if he's in NXT, he'll be able to build himself up again, because WWE at the moment have only got him getting sort of destroyed every week by the Hurt Business recently. He's almost like a talented jobber, so to speak, which is he's far too good for that, in my opinion.
I would agree, yeah. He's far better than an enhancement talent. And you mentioned there about people going back to NXT. Breezango, Finn Balor. I mean, these superstars have been on the main rosters for years, and they've gone down. And Finn Balor's the NXT champion, Breezango, the tag team champion. So, like you say, you can go down, you can rebuild that reputation. So it would be good to see him back in that sort of role. I'd be very pleased to see him in NXT once again. I'd even be happy for him to go on to SmackDown at this point, because I feel on Raw, there's so many superstars kind of like a Ricochet. None of them really stand out. If you look at like Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander, Humberto Carrillo, they're all similar style of gimmicks and in-ring style action.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think all them points you make are all sort of linked in that makes sense. I think it's just a shame, really, when you look at sort of how high and how sort of over he was with the fans when he came up at first. They just seem to lose that. The problem is when he's stuck in this kind of feud now, and they're clearly outnumbered, it just doesn't do any favours to him. And I think ever since he's had that world title challenge to Brock Lesnar, where he got absolutely destroyed, he's sort of gone downhill really since then. But fingers crossed that he's able to sort it out. I'd like to see him sort of do well in WWE, because I'm a massive fan of him. I think he's really good. I'm even a fan of him going back to his Lucha Underground days. Do you remember Lucha Underground?
I do indeed. I was a big fan. In fact, Prince Puma was my favourite back at that time, obviously not recognising at the time that was actually Ricochet. I remember actually being flabbergasted when I actually then saw Ricochet in New Japan against Will Ospreay. Of course, that famously critiqued match that they had, which was almost, it was like a spot fest really from start to finish, but really put him on the map, it felt, with those two companies going forward. But yeah, I would be a fan of seeing whatever Ricochet decides to do. I think he can be a success story. I just believe, like you said there, he's lost that momentum in the last sort of 6 months or so. WWE needs to have a bit more faith in a superstar like him, because he really can stand out. He's something, although I mentioned other superstars that have kind of got a similar style, he can stand out in amongst his gimmick. And I don't know, he just seems a bit crisper, a bit cleaner in the ring than the rest, in my personal opinion. But another person that could be potentially unhappy in WWE is Kevin Owens. Now, news report via Ringside News this week has suggested that Kevin Owens has been very frustrated with the start-stop pushes and the way that he's been booked over recent times in WWE. And you couldn't fault him for that, really, because, well, let's be fair, it's kind of true. It seems every time Kevin Owens gets that certain point on the ladder, that rug just seems to be pulled. There's been a lot of speculation going around saying that Kevin Owens is very well liked backstage, someone that's been very, happy-go-lucky kind of superstar, but recently has been more miserable, difficult backstage has been the rumour that's been coming out. What are your feelings with Kevin Owens in WWE right now? Could you see that this could be, has some substance to it?
Yeah, maybe. I think the thing with it is they've never really followed up his WrestleMania win against Seth. I think sort of he's had the odd matches here. He's had the odd spells where he's looked great, where he's beat people such as Murphy. He's beat Seth again on TV. He's even beat Angel Garza and people like that. It's just they never seem to elevate him. For me, he could be a ready-made challenger for the title, but as a babyface, I don't really know if it connects to me. I think he's far better as a heel. He's a fantastic talent. I just would hate to see him be wasted in sort of Raw Underground and needless feud, so to speak. What's your thoughts of the booking of Kevin Owens this year so far?
This year, I think you've nailed right on the head. I mean, I think it's unfortunate Kevin Owens was injured during that, of course, big spot that he did in the Performance Center, jumping off the WrestleMania sign. But I would have had him as like a Money in the Bank winner at that point. I thought he was the ready-made person to be that challenger for Drew McIntyre, despite him being a face at the time. Like you say, he can do both roles. He can play face or heel. But it just feels like he's got lost since coming back in. I know that, of course, with the pandemic, it's been difficult. Not everyone has been, at WWE at certain points, and I know he's been someone that has verbally said about the use of masks and the social distancing and stuff with the coronavirus stuff and the way that that stuff was treated in WWE according to a lot of the wrestle sites that are out there. But with Kevin Owens, I really want to see him start being pushed back up the card. I mean, he did beat Aleister Black in quick fashion this week. That probably says more about Aleister Black's push in WWE than it does Kevin Owens. But I mean, KO, he for me deserves to be higher up the card, and hopefully this is the start of a push towards something. But with the draft coming up, George, I'm going to ask you this question probably more frequently in the coming weeks, as we're expecting one in October. Would you keep Kevin Owens on Raw, or do you think he would be better utilised on SmackDown?
I think you've got, it depends on what sort of dynamic you're going to have him. If you're going to have him as babyface, I think you have to you have to potentially kind of move him to SmackDown. If he's going to be a heel, keep him on Raw. That's the thing. I think the thing with sort of Kevin Owens is he, as you said, he is great at being both a babyface and a heel, so it can work whatever he does in that respect. It's just more the placement. The problem is when you have got him having these massive victories, like he's beat Seth Rollins twice this year. I know at WrestleMania he got injured. They haven't been able to naturally follow up on that. And then when you're wasting him in Raw Underground and places like that, I think it's a shame, really. If you look at his booking since August, he lost twice to Randy Orton, which has no shame in that. He kind of got destroyed by Dabba-Kato. He's now beat Aleister Black, which was a big win, but Aleister Black's stock has fallen, as you said earlier. But for me, I would like to see him something new with him. Either let's push him on Raw as a heel, or let's move him to SmackDown and make him sort of a babyface. Somebody then to go against Roman Reigns. I think Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, for me, that could be a fun match. What do you think of that?
I'd love to see it. I really loved their match at the Royal Rumble 2017, I think it was. I think that was almost like a hardcore style match they had. And they had great chemistry at that point. So I'd love to see it again somewhere down the road. I think that those two would actually make magic. So for me, a little spoiler, I did a WWE draft video this week. And for those that haven't gone and checked out, do so on the channel. But I'll give you one little spoiler on there. I had Kevin Owens going over to SmackDown purely because of the fact that I do believe that they'll keep him as a babyface for the time being. And like you said there, the match with Roman Reigns, it's easily set in stone. Once maybe done a match with the Fiend, maybe that's what they could do going into the winter months. But Roman, if he's going to be the heel champion, he needs baby faces. And I think KO would slot nicely on the blue brand if that was to happen. But we've mentioned Roman Reigns there. And of course, SmackDown is this evening as of recording. And we've got a little announcement. We've got that there's going to be a Samoan street fight. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso are going to be taking on Sheamus and King Corbin in this. Now, I'm already feeling this may not be the best street fight we've had of the week even, but the thing that makes me question this, and what I really want to talk to you about on this topic, is the relationship with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Now, I've seen a little bit of criticism out there just purely because Roman Reigns has just turned heel. Jey Uso has, been a babyface in this role here, and if we want to establish Roman as the big, bad heel, yes, destroy the family and the family feud, but is it right to have them teaming up on the road to Clash of Champions?
Yeah, for me, I'm very underwhelmed by that. I think it's rematch city again. I know you're getting the street fight element. We had this last week. I get that you want to sort of get Roman over as a badass heel, and you've got Jey Uso there, and you want to kind of get Jey Uso over with the fans as well to be a title contender. But for me, I'm not kind of a fan of this. I think it's we've had it once. I think the point is we're going into sort of Clash of Champions. We need to be having them start feuding. I think the problem with this is, for me, I think Jey Uso is like a placement. I think he's a placeholder challenger. He's got no real chance of winning this match. So I just think it's sort of against Roman Reigns. So I just think it's filler TV for me. And I think the fact they've done a street fight, what a worse week to pick a street fight element. What's your thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, you probably didn't think ahead, like maybe if you don't pay attention to the other companies, maybe you think, oh, well, Street Fight's a good way to do. But no, after AEW this particular week, I mean, they have knocked one completely out of the park here. I mean, from a Street Fight perspective, and really it's a parking lot brawl here between, of course, Santana Ortiz against the Best Friends. I mean, this has to be, in my personal opinion, the best parking lot brawl I've ever seen, and possibly up there in the top 2 or 3 street fights I've ever seen. It was violent, it was brutal, but it had the necessary things to have that feel, but it also didn't destroy things from a mainstream viewer audience. I think it was okay within the boundaries of what they were showing on TNT. So for me, this was pay-per-view level worthy. I think it was very well done. I thoroughly loved it. My minor critique was Orange Cassidy's involvement towards the end of the match for the finish. I felt the 4 superstars didn't need that interference, but at the same time, for me, it didn't take enough for it where it hurt the match. I think that the match still was very well done. I love the fact that Trent's mum, Sue, actually picked them up after the match with Trent being full of blood going into this white car. I found it hilarious. And of course, flipping the bird as well. Just that nice little end of touch. You had that real go home happy thing. It felt it felt for our target audience as a wrestling fan. I felt I was in the right age group watching this. It wasn't designed for kids. It was designed for people of our age. And I thoroughly loved it. George, did you feel the same?
Yeah, what a fantastic street fight. I think, as you said, it was up there. I think all 4 wrestlers came out with credit. I really like elements of this. It very much reminded me of ECW in the old days, where it sort of nothing was off out of bands. And it really took me back to sort of a bit like the Attitude Era as well, in the respect of the matches that Hardcore Holly and Al Snow used to have, where you used to end up in the river and anything goes. I just thought it was a fantastic match, really. I think, and the problem is now, WWE, going back to your original topic, I've got a street fight this week. I know it's PG and it's going to be hard to follow up, but yeah, WWE have made a mountain for them to climb up. Really, I think it's all right in terms of the AEW Street Fight, though. Yeah, probably one of the matches of the year. Really, I think it was really good. It got all the wrestlers over, and the Orange Cassidy thing at the end, I found it quite kind of humorous. It's a feel good moment, which it's kind of nice to get a feel good moment eventually. It is building up the great work that they're doing. Clearly, they want to get Orange Cassidy over with everybody. He's beat Jericho previously, and he's got this challenge against. He's got this challenge now against the former Luke Harper for the AEW TV title next week as well. Or sorry, Brody Lee, shall we say. So they want to get him on TV for that, so it makes sense, really. But going back to SmackDown and this other topic, for me, maybe this is the time where Roman eventually leave. He left Jey Uso last week. Maybe tonight he finally beats him up, which it's just a shame, really. We're doing Rematch City. That's the one thing I'm not really a fan of at the moment, WWE, unfortunately.
No, I mean, the one thing I would say is, like you say there, you made a very good point that Roman Reigns didn't want to be anywhere associated with Jey Uso, despite that tag team match. I mean, it was another one of those, he tagged himself in to get the win, show up and win, as Roman is doing. So I suppose in that sense, it is excusable with what they're doing. But at the same time, I just feel that, like you said, I want to see a beatdown. But maybe we're going to wait for the pay-per-view. Maybe it's going to be dominant. Maybe it's going to be violent. I will have to wait and see what they're going to do with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. But there certainly is a little bit of interest in there, despite the fact we think it's a placeholder for what we think will be the inevitable Hell in a Cell. You see it potentially, as well as I am guessing, The Fiend versus Roman for the title.
Yeah, 100%. Based on this past week's SmackDown, where we had the wobbly rulers, aka Paul Heyman, that's there. Basically, it's going into another topic. That's there, obviously, as a hint to Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt again, in my opinion. But for me, it's placeholder. I think the biggest problem I've got with this Jey Uso Roman Reigns thing is, let's look at Jey Uso. He's never really beat anybody in a one-on-one match. He won one match, yet he's the number one contender. And this is where the logic falls down for me. This is your world title that's already undervalued. You need to try and rebuild it, and you're just giving him throwing away matches yet again, really, which is a shame, really. What's your thoughts on that?
I kind of agree with you. When you've got established people like AJ Styles on the roster, I know Jeff Hardy, they're currently in the Intercontinental Championship feud, but both have been up there and champions before. They have other people that are in that position that they could be challenging for the belt. And it's great to see new people get a chance. Hey, this is how we build new stars. We need to have new challenges. But like you said, maybe if Jey Uso had won maybe 2-3 months worth of matches leading up to this, I think you turn around and have a very different opinion of it. I think you turn around and say, well, there's been some logic in booking. Big E, for example, we're making clear Big E is going to be a singles star. Big E is going to be a guy that you turn around and say, right, okay, maybe by WrestleMania, he's going to be ready for the championship. But at this particular point with Jey Uso, it's kind of just come out of nowhere, almost like an RKO. And I think that's why we kind of felt a little bit, surprised by this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're spot on. I think the thing with it is with Big E, at least they're doing some sort of groundwork with Jey Uso. I get it; it's the whole family connection, but to me, it just doesn't really work. I think Roman Reigns doesn't need that to be a badass heel. He's already a heel. He's already over, so he doesn't need to be beating Jey Uso. It does nothing for Roman Reigns. Does nothing for the belt, in my opinion. I think it's a real shame, really, when we're looking at sort of what they've done really with this belt so far this year. They've obviously had it change hands to various people. Roman Reigns is going to be a great champion, no doubt of that. He's up that level. He's a fantastic heel. It's a great element. He's refreshed. I just think that they've got to start getting him contenders where we actually think the belt might be in danger of changing. Really, for me, in my opinion, I think that's what's kind of missing. Really.
Absolutely. You need to have a feeling going into a match that there's a chance the other person can win. And I think that's kind of the real feeling with this one is that you almost want to see Reigns not just win this, but you want to see him dominate this match with Jey Uso when it comes around to Clash of Champions, which hopefully he will do. And as I think I said a previous video I've done on here, I don't think I've said it with you, George, but I'd love it to be that he destroys Jey Uso to the point that he holds Jey up towards the camera and says, I think the family's proud of me now, just to really get that heel killer line over. Great. Just something like that I think would be a nice twist and would be a nice closing for this story, in my humble opinion. But we mentioned there Big E, and there's a big story that's come out with the New Day over the last 24 hours as well that was rumoured that could have been happening but has been rejected. It would have been the New Day splitting up in the next draft. It would have been Big E staying on SmackDown, Kofi Kingston moving to Monday Night Raw, and Xavier Woods being a manager on both brands. Now, this apparently has been rejected, so it's not expected to happen. But I wanted your thoughts on it. Would you have liked to have seen this?
Yeah, I would have. I think for me, Kofi's gone like really, really quiet. They're not doing anything with him at the moment, it seems. So it'll be good. Big E's clearly going to be a star. The singles push has started. He's doing really well with that. And I like the way that Xavier Woods would have come back. It's something different. I like the way they're trying to do different stuff. It's a shame they didn't do it. I think for me, the money really in this stable that's left, or this group, is that one of them turns heel. That's kind of the thing that's got to be done. And I think you've got to have that dissension, really, which I thought maybe we might have got that already. But for me, I think it'd be great to see Kofi try and get back to where he was, because let's not forget, this guy's a former world champion. He was one of the most over Finns going into WrestleMania a couple of years ago, whereas now he's just another kind of wrestler on the card, unfortunately, despite his fantastic talent.
Absolutely. I believe that he has been out injured, I think, in recent weeks. But like you say, they haven't been doing so much with him as of late. He just went straight back into the tag team picture. For him to come back now, what would you bring him back to? I mean, for me, if Big E's going for the world title and he does stay on SmackDown, would you like to see him in the IC title picture?
Yeah, I think he'd be a great fit. I think he could have some good matches with particularly AJ Styles or Jeff Hardy. I think, it'd be fun. Kofi Kingston, as I said, he's a great worker.
Absolutely. I think Kofi Kingston's a great worker. Big fan of the New Day. I'm personally happy they're staying on the same brand for myself, because once they get out of the Amway Centre, I guess that's a chance where they're going to be different towns, different days. And if they want to be around themselves in the same company, I guess I understand why it would have been rejected. But also, like you say, from the fresh value and being in the Amway Centre, I would have liked that as well. I just found it was a very fascinating topic, so I really want to discuss that with you. Another fascinating topic is we're going to start segueing from WWE into other companies. Well, this one kind of is an individual talent at the moment. Tessa Blanchard. Now, of course, the famous WWE Battlegrounds video game has been released, but there's been a still image that's been put in the game which appears to look like a hell of a lot like Tessa Blanchard in the game. It's caused all sorts of controversy. George, I was wondering if you could give us a bit more of an update on this story.
Yeah, so obviously, apparently there's an image of Tessa Blanchard, like a pose she did, that apparently sort of is in the game. It clearly does look like her pose. And I think it's just it's kind of a bit outrageous, really. Obviously, the person that's created this image is probably going to sue WWE or something like that. But for me, as far as I knew, I believe Tessa Blanchard was as good as going to be signed by WWE. So I know that she obviously didn't own, she owns her own image, but she must not obviously own this supposed pose that was done. Is Tessa Blanchard signed by WWE? Are we correct there, or is that just a sort of a rumor?
It's still in the rumour mill. I mean, everyone thought it was good as done a little while ago, but it doesn't seem to have signed the dotted line yet. The latest hint that's come to believe that this could be something in the working of Tessa Blanchard at least signing somewhere is that she lost, I believe it's the Warrior Women's Championship this past weekend. She lost that to Kylie Ray. That was her first match back since the pandemic obviously has begun, and of course since she's got married as well. So she's dropped that championship. So there's a chance now maybe, provided she doesn't have any championships with any other indie company, that maybe, just maybe, she could be about to head somewhere, whether it be WWE or perhaps with her father in AEW would also be another option. But it's certainly fascinating stuff indeed. But I believe that image was taken when she was in Impact Wrestling, if I'm not mistaken. And that maybe could be where the rights of that image could be coming from. But certainly a fascinating story indeed. But like you say, the cheek of it to be in a game, if it is meant to be that image, certainly it's definitely a bit cheeky to say the least.
It's a costly mistake if that's the case, isn't it? Definitely.
Certainly. Well, one other story links WWE, and this one's going to link to AEW as we go into talking a couple of bits about Dynamite. Of course, we always spoke about the parking lot brawl, but apparently WWE wanted to sign Tony Schiavone before he signed for AEW purely to stop him from going to AEW. Now, Tony Schiavone, of course, was a part of WWE, of course, back in the old WWF days, I believe in 1989, if I'm not mistaken, when I want to say that there. Definitely the late 80s, maybe start of the 90s. Of course, the names with WCW for the major years of the Monday Night Wars. But then, I mean, all these years in between, they could have signed Tony Schiavone and no mention. Seems funny that when AEW comes calling, that WWE do as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of them things. I think Tony Schiavone's always been a great play-by-play guy. Clearly, some of the greatest moments, he was one of the voices of WCW. And I think the fact is, it's funny how WWE didn't have any interest for years and years and years. He was obviously previously at the Royal Rumble 1990 and SummerSlam 89, where he did commentary, did a great job. But it's just really weird how the minute AEW formed, WWF almost, or WWE, sorry, panicked. What's your thoughts? Do you think Tony Schiavone could have been a...
Sorry, I lost that just a small second there with Tony Schiavone. Sorry.
All I said was, do you believe that Tony Schiavone could have been a great success if he had gone to WWE at the same time AEW launched?
Do you know what? I really do, because a lot of people dig the commentary. That's where they have a go at in WWE, is the commentary team. And I think that Tony does bring a lot there. And I think that he's got great experience. I think that's what's great with him. You look at Michael Cole, he's got great experience of what he does. He seems to be a lot more favourable with his recent Raw appearances than he gets with Corey Graves. Maybe people have just had enough of that partnership for the time being. But I do feel that with an experienced head like that with Tony Schiavone, that it's good to see. AEW has the experience at the table with Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. Of course, have done many NWA shows together in the 80s. So it's fascinating to see, really. And of course, with WCW in the early 90s as well. I think Tony would be a success wherever he was, to be fair. But at the same time, I'm pleased he was in AEW, because I think what he brings to the table for that company, I think is something that's invaluable to a lot of other companies. I think that he certainly feels useful, a purpose, and I'm sure he feels very loved being there.
Yeah, definitely. I think he brings a great sense of nostalgia, which I think is always nice.
Absolutely. It's great when you're hearing one of those famous names putting a new star over. It just kind of feels that feeling there where you kind of go like, I'm going to believe in Orange Cassidy. I'm going to believe in the Best Friends. You know, it's sort of that feeling when you hear those sort of things from maybe Britt Baker. He's bigging her up a bit as well. And certainly one of my favourite gimmicks of the year has been her role model. But let's move on to AEW Dynamite, shall we? Let's talk about one of our favourite topics when we do bring him up, Mr. MJF. And of course, this week he won very quickly in quick fashion against the Jobber this week with the Salt of the Earth, the sort of, Fujiwara armbar that he uses. And he did get on the mic after the match, which we expected he would, with Wardlow in the background. And he said that, he's, the uncrowned, undisputed, unofficial AEW champion out there. And as well as that he feels that he's not going to get the opportunities he wants and deserves at this particular moment. He's always been a lone wolf. Maybe it's time he helps himself and gets over in the company, because the only way to get over is to be in a stable or a faction. So that's really put a lot of, talking points for the wrestling community of thinking who might be a part of a stable for MJF. First off, I think before we start talking in members, George, would you be a fan of seeing MJF, lead a type of stable in AEW?
Yes, I would. He's a fantastic talker. So I think, it'd be great. He could certainly give a lift to people that may be under the card if they're in a stable with him, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think that as well. One thing I found really cheeky as well was when he'd done this interview and he left the ringside area, he had a little swag in his step just as he was going up the ramp, and it all just felt a bit Ric Flair-esque. And there's been a talk of a long time that they want to do a 4 horseman type stable. So I'm going to throw my 4 horseman type stable for you now, George, and get your opinions on it. I wondered MJF, Wardlow, FTR with Tully as the manager directing as well. Of course, Wardlow could be the big heavy like he always is, but of course, Tully could be, the direction of telling people where their mistakes are being made. And like they've done, FTR have gone up a level, it feels, since they've had Tully in their corner. Would you feel the same if MJF and, of course, Wardlow would have Tully in their corner as well?
Yeah, I think it's a great fit. I think it would work. I think clearly I like the people you've named in that stable. I think that's a good
Absolutely. I think that it would be a fun stable. What I thought as well, it'd feel like a throwback stable as well, because, FTR kind of felt like that Brainbusters type tag team back in the old days. MJF is just a throwback in himself. He's not like this flipped kind of guy, superstar that you get in the modern day. So I really like the idea of this as being a stable together. Is there other names that you would throw in the hat if you were given, the pencil for AEW right now?
If I could, rather than a four-man stable, if I could choose other people as Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks as well, I think that could be like a super stable. But I think the stable you said is probably more likely. I could see FTR and MJF working, so it's more likely probably than my one. But both would be fantastic. Though both stables, if they did them, would be great.
Absolutely, I would love to see that as well. It seems that Omega and of course the Young Bucks are going down that direction of where they're, the elite's almost going down the dark side once again. But let's go to our good friends at Twitter, shall we? Because we threw this out to you guys in the wrestling community. Of course, we love to interact here on SCW. So I have taken a few tweets, and I'm going to give you what some of the people have said. Dylan Ketchum, who likes to get involved here from time to time on SCW, thank you as well for giving your suggestion. He said that, of course, with Wardlow, naturally with MJF, he would have Santana and Ortiz. Now, of course, we've discussed previously about them in the with the Inner Circle perhaps being overlooked. Their stock has definitely risen this week. Would you see it as a natural fit?
Hi, Dylan. Yeah, I would. I think that'd be a good fit. I think it would further 100%.
Absolutely, indeed. And I hope I'm saying this one right now, but Chansey, it's definitely Sharkbomb99 if you want to get the definitely get the follow right. Of course, using here Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. You'd have four dudes there, he said, with MJF and, of course, Wardlow. Now, of course, I know Brian Pillman Jr. has been involved with MLW, which, of course, I've not followed too much with, but I know that MJF was a part of that as well. Would you see that this would fit quite nicely together? Of course, Pillman and Garrison...
It could work. I think the key thing with a stable with MJF... Hi, Chancey. I think the key thing with a stable with MJF, he has to be the main focal point. So clearly that would work. I think the people underneath him are not sort of main stars at the moment. They're all potential stars. So yeah, that could work. I think if you're going to give MJF a new sort of group, then I think new people probably is the way maybe forward to get him over more. You don't want him to be in there and sort of battle with other people, which is probably kind of in the stable I said probably.
Well, I mean, there's always potentially could be the case. And like you said, I love the idea of elevating new superstars up the card. I think that's good. And as I was going to say a minute ago, I think that both of those superstars now mainly on Dark. So that gives them a chance to go to Dynamite, which I think would be fantastic for them. So, and we mentioned there about MLW just very shortly, but Everything Pro Wrestling said that the Dynasty stable that was around in MLW, easy for me to say, was a great stable back in the day. I must admit, I don't have so much experience of seeing them during that time. But have you seen much of MLW, George?
No, I haven't. I know there was a few bits. I know they had a champion called Jacob Fatu. There was a bit like Yamaga and stuff, but no, it's not something I've kind of watched a lot of. I think it's quite hard over here to see it. I know that it's on a channel called Free Sports, and it's on at like midnight or 1 a.m. or something crazy, and there's not a massive amount of coverage here in the United Kingdom. I imagine it's probably the same way you are, Steve.
Unfortunately, there's not that easy way of seeing. I do know that with, I believe with the United States, they have it on BN Sports, which is definitely a very popular platform for them to see it. And if there's a chance to maybe check them out at some point in the future, would love to do so. But sadly, to this point, haven't been able to. But I know that MJF was a multi-time champion there with the tag team, and I believe was a middleweight champion as well, if I'm not mistaken. I've tried to do my research for this, as you may have noticed. Jordan S. actually mentioned about FTR as well. So they've also mentioned that also. Jordan, thank you for your comment. And we've discussed that one already then. We think it'll be a great fit. And Bros, Bumps and Beers, what a great username that is there. A Hill Jungle Boy. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be a swerve, wouldn't it? I like that. It's Vince Russo-esque. Good shout.
Absolutely. And the last one as well from Thai World Order, who likes to get involved as well in SCW from time to time there. The Muscle with Wardlow, as we've mentioned already. Private Party and Heather Monroe, which I think also, again, both those sort of undercard kind of characters. I love the idea of Private Party, just before I pass to you, George, of them being a heel tag team. I think that would be quite fun. And can you imagine, with the Burberry kind of style, they usually go with the leopard print, turn it to the Burberry style. I think that could be quite fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Private Party's heels could be fun. I actually see MGF stable. Like, I don't remember the old days of the Attitude Era where we had Don Callis as the Jackal with the Truth Commission as a speaker. I can almost see them doing that with MJF, having MJF as somebody that can manipulate people based on his verbal skills. And I think that could really, really work. I think he could brainwash people that are babyface into heels, being heels or doing his dirty work, which will ultimately get him up to the title probably, which I think will really work.
I love it. I think that sounds like a fantastic idea to do it like that. I really think that would be quite cool. We speak of some of the perhaps, like you say, lesser names or less known names on the card. One actually had a great breakout performance who've been performing on Dark in the Casino Battle Royale that was just this past couple of weeks ago at All Out. Now signed to a full-time contract. Will Hobbs is elite, ladies and gentlemen, and he is expected to get a major push within the promotion. And even to the point that he's actually going to be involved in the six-man tag team match this upcoming week. He actually made the save for Jon Moxley this past week. So we're going to have Moxley, Darby Allin, and Will Hobbs against Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and of course, Ricky Starks. What do you think of this six-man tag? And I think it's a great place to put Will Hobbs in, straight in the deep end.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Steve. I think he's clearly in the main thing. I think it's great to see him on the main roster. I think he's in the room with some great people. It's a great opportunity for him to get over with the fans. He's done some great work on AEW Dark. Recently beat Jesse Sorensen. He Allen a while ago, sort of back in August, which was quite good. And I think if you look at Will Hobbs, he's got a lot of experience. He's kind of previously has been an APW internet champion, and he's done stuff like that. So I think it's great to see him. It's great to see AEW make these new signings and make stars out of them. So I think putting him there with the right people at the top, particularly the world champion, I think what more can you do? I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that it's a great way to put him in. It's a great learning curve, and I think the future is bright for Will Hobbs. I don't know, just something looks at him and you just see star, and it's great to see one of these big guys that come in as well, and they're actually a babyface, because a lot of these big guys brought into AEW recently have been heels going after the champion. It's good to see that some muscle is there on the babyface side as well. Of course, there's some great potential matches we could look forward to somewhere down the line. We're already going to see Cage and Archer in the ring with Hobbs this upcoming week, and I think it's going to be a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be a fun all-out war.
I think so as well. I think with these six, anything could happen. And Dynamite just feels must-see once again this upcoming week. But we touched on one more thing very quickly before we do. Of course, Thunder Rosa defended the NWA Women's Championship successfully, I might add. So the first time that championship has been defended on Dynamite, defeating Eva Lise. There's been rumours going around. This was a bit of a shoot.
Yeah, I think it got a bit heated. I don't know whether that was meant to be the case, but early stages of the match, it did look like that both Eva Lise and Thunder Rosa were trading some very hard shots. But yeah, great match again. Once again, it's great to see Thunder Rosa on AEW TV.
I completely
eventually, if she does join sort of AEW permanently when her contract expires. But yeah, it was a great match. I thought the shoot element of it, I don't know if it was legit or not, but it made it a lot more entertaining to watch.
Absolutely. I don't know, something screams star with Thunder Rosa. I really want to see her permanently somewhere. I actually saw a great tweet from Sean Slate, actually, who's quite regular on Twitter, and certainly someone we follow here on SCW, which we recommend to go and follow, suggesting one day, I need Thunder Rosa versus Io Shirai. I feel I need that match as well.
Match, doesn't it? I think that'd be fantastic. I think the thing is, AEW need the signing more than WWE. I think that's the one thing AEW, they lack decent women's wrestling. But I think Thunder Rosa, having her on the show every week or as much as possible was a great start. And I think this is great exposure for NWA Power as well. It's getting the brand out there again. Although they are going to be slightly depleted. They've lost quite a few people, unfortunately, since they were last on there.
They have indeed, yeah. I mean, it's kind of good for them to have that exposure. Like I said, I'd personally seen Nick Aldis have a little go once again on AEW, just to really establish Eli Drake as well. I know those guys are still signed with NWA, so it would be quite cool to see just a bit of a cross brand, just so they can start getting things back up and running again. Because for them as a brand, I think it's fantastic. You've got about 800,000 fans each and every week seeing, one of the champions is on there. We quite like what they do. Let's go and check that company out. The YouTube channel could go through the roof when we get back going for them. So I think it's great for them if they can have some sort of working relationship. But we mentioned AEW won the ratings this week. They had about 800,000 again, to NXT dropping back down to about 600K again, which is a shame for them. But just shows clearly they need to be on separate nights. But one bit of good news for NXT, they've got a permanent commentator in the hot seat. Wade Barrett now has signed a 1-year deal with NXT. So happy he's there. He's done a great job so far.
Yeah, it's great. I think he, as I said previously, he gives a big time feel to NXT TV, and I think it's a shame to see Nigel McGuinness in the UK, but it's great to have a Brit in the hot seat. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. We're biased here and we don't care.
Yeah.
We love a bit of a Brit in the hot seat. Honestly, it's great to see that with Wade Barrett there. And like I say, Nigel Guinness, thankfully back on NXT UK. And the set looked fantastic with NXT UK. And good luck to them with the BT Sports Studios. And look forward to watching them each and every week. But of course, with the main show of NXT this week on a Wednesday night, the standout match for me had to be Io Shirai against Shotzi Blackheart. This felt like a standout moment performance for Shotzi. Hopefully big and better things are on our way going forward after this match.
Yeah, I thought that's the best Shotzi Blackheart match I've ever seen. I thought it was fantastic. It really was just above and beyond. I thought it wouldn't be any good, and I think it just shows how good Io Shirai is. And credit to Shotzi Blackheart, I always thought she was a bit of a comedy act, but the way that she was able to carry herself, the amount of offense she got in, there were times when you generally thought they were going to pull a shock, and maybe Io Shirai was going to lose. But great match. Credit to the women. I think it.
Oh, we just lost you at the second there, George. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. All I was saying is that the Io Shirai Shotzi Blackheart match was probably one of the best matches of the week. I think it was fantastic, and it further shows that the women's NXT division is really, really strong at the moment.
Absolutely. It's a standout. It really is. And the thing is that you beautifully mentioned that there, because we've now got a number one contendership going to be taking place next week, and a whole host of the NXT women's division going to be taking place in this battle royal. The winner will get a shot. And we've said this before, NXT going to have a takeover on October 4th, the week after Clash of Champions. So they're going to start building towards that. No name given as of yet, but we've got a number one contendership battle royale. We mentioned Shotzi Blackheart. Tegan Nox is in the match as well. Candice LeRae, Rhea Ripley, the list goes on and on, where it's Aaliyah's and, of this world. All are in this match. It's looking like it's going to be an exciting one. I think Rhea Ripley is going to walk away here. I think she needs to have the match with Io Shirai at the TakeOver. I've been screaming since TakeOver 30. It's time for the money match, isn't it, George?
Yeah, I think it's got to come down to Rhea Ripley winning. You look at it, Candice LeRae and Tegan Nox, you might as well take them out. They're going to have a singles match, but judging by the past few weeks on NXT, I would think. And I think that is the money match. I think for me, you're going to do it at a TakeOver. You need to probably do like a no contest or something, because this needs more than one match. This is going to be one of the women's matches of the year, Steve. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Oh yeah, it feels money, these two together. I mean, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai. I mean, this is main roster worthy. Like you argue and say, this will be pay-per-view level for a Raw or a SmackDown. These two are top of their game, and genuinely feel that the future is so bright for both of them. Personally, for me, I'm going to stick my neck out now, because I like to make a prediction here and there. I think Io Shirai would still retain at this point. I think Rhea Ripley is going to Raw or SmackDown when we get this next draft. The draft, as I said, it's going to be very popular when we talk wrestling over the next few weeks. Is very hugely hinted we're going to get a draft probably in the month of October. And I think if the takeover is October 4th, wow, that's just perfect timing, isn't it? To set someone off, get them ready to be called up to Raw or SmackDown. So I think Rhea Ripley, she's going to get one more big, takeover match. And I think her future is going to be on either Mondays or Fridays.
I agree with you. I think she has to go up. Clearly, she's been ready for the main roster probably even since WrestleMania, really. So I think it's about time. And I think the only concern I have about this, but that would fit with what you say. If she's only going to be there for one more match, that is the way to go out against Io Shirai. Clearly, you're going to put over Io Shirai again, and then you'll probably move forward to Io Shirai. Will then probably face the winner of Candice LeRae or Tegan Nox, I would guess, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a perfect combination of those against each other there. So it would be very exciting to see how and what the plans are going to be next. And like you say, maybe Io Shirai at that point, and she's so over at that point, the next person she puts the belt to, goodness, they're going to look so good, aren't they? Say Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox, Shotzi. If any of them win the belt off Io at that point, you turn and say, wow, we've got the next star built there with that one as well. So it's very well booked the way the NXT women's division is going at the moment. They've done such a great job. But let's talk about the men's division. Finn, of course, Finn over. He is literally now needs a challenger. And William Regal seems quite happy to give him that for the next takeover. It looks like we are going to get what is seen as a gauntlet elimination match. Something I used to love doing on the WCW versus NWO computer game days. We used to turn the rules off, have a Royal Rumble style match, get the baseball bats out from the arenas and start smashing people to pieces. But it's also what people suggested as well as an Aztec warfare match. We mentioned Lucha Underground earlier in this. It's pretty much the same, but instead of 20 superstars, it's going to be 5. George, your thoughts on this, and who do you think is going to be in it?
Yeah, what an exciting concept. Obviously, we've seen it before. It's something different. It's a great way to get multiple people in a match. And if we think who's going to be in it, we've got one announcement one. The other 4 people, I think you're going for Cameron Grimes, as always. I think he's bound to be in it. I think you're looking at probably Bronson Reed, and then you're looking at probably somebody like either the Velveteen Dream or Ridge Holland, I would say. That's probably going to be your pick. In terms of a winner, for me, I think we're looking at, it's got to be somebody kind of that's up there, and I think it's got to be somebody refreshing, really. So it's kind of hard, really. I really struggle to pick a winner, really. For me, it may be Velveteen Dream, but then is it too soon for Velveteen Dream to be in the title picture again? What's your thoughts, Steve?
Very interesting indeed. Who was the first superstar again? It's been announced, sorry. I'm just trying to get all the names.
Kushida.
Kushida. See, Kushida would be a great shout. Just to see him in a takeover match. I've not seen it. It would be...
Maybe it would be him. He's on a bit of a push. It probably could be Kushida, really. That would make sense, really, versus Balor, probably.
It would be interesting to see. I mean, Grimes has a victory over Balor as well, but would that really sell your takeover? I'm not sure. I like the idea of Kushida, personally. I know Rich Holland has got a bright future as well in there. Like you say, Velveteen Dream probably the biggest name, but certainly controversial at this moment, I would say, in that position. So there could be a number of people it could be, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, and we'll have to wait and find out as more names are announced there. But I like the sound of Kushida. I want to see him have a takeover moment because he's another person I can't want to see move to Raw or SmackDown because I just don't see him utilised well enough in NXT up to this point, or to this recent push anyway.
No, I agree with you. I think it'd be good to see get that moment. The way I kind of look at it, whoever it's going to be is only a placeholder. The fact that we're sort of only like sort of 2 weeks away from a takeover isn't much time to build up a feud. So it's going to be sort of something they're thrown together, really.
Absolutely, indeed there. Well, let's move on to Monday Night Raw then, because, of course, they've had a very busy week there. We want to make sure we get our Raw bits in this week before we close off the show. Of course, it's been announced that we could have an ambulance match now for the Clash of Champions. I'm really happy about this. I did a video a few months ago suggesting some gimmick matches we should have. We've had a parking lot brawl this week, and we're getting an ambulance match. Both were in the video. I feel someone's watched it. They probably haven't, but let's hope they have. But it's great to see that this match is going to be brought in. It seems to fit well with the storyline. Are you liking the idea of an ambulance match with Drew and Randy?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's something different, and I really like the way that they're building it. I think they've done a great job of both Drew and Randy trading blows so far, which has made it a very even feud. Even though we've had the match at SummerSlam already, I think the ambulance element makes it more exciting.
Absolutely, because we had the finishers not in the match, but we've had them all the way through to now, and then an ambulance is going to finish this one off. So really exciting to see how it is going to play out. But also wondered your thoughts on the Asuka-Mickie James match this week. Of course, there was a bit of controversy with that one. Mickie James was clearly reversing the move, but the ref thought that she'd actually hurt herself and thought she couldn't continue, so he stopped the match. Health and safety first, yes, but Mickie, is she too good in the ring?
I think she's a fantastic worker, it has to be said. I think she's a legend in the ring. For me, she is very good. I understand why. Obviously, she took a couple of very hard shots in the nose, and I think they've got to be safe. But it's a shame, really, for the match to end like that. But I wasn't going to win this match, I don't think, either way.
No, it was always going to be Asuka winning here. There was never going to be any doubt on the victor and the loser of this match, but certainly was interesting to see how it was played out. We mentioned earlier on about Andrade potentially losing his push. Well, he's lost his manager by the look of things, and potentially we could have Zelina Vega going for the championship. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a bit out there. It's a bit different. Zelina Vega, clearly Trinidad. She's a fantastic worker. She's another one that can work. I think she's got the potential to go far, but it's very soon to have a title challenge, and I think it's something different. I think clearly WWE are wanting to relaunch that women's division on Raw, which will probably fit with maybe people coming up in the draft, as you said earlier. I think it all sort of runs in line. But for me, I think she'll just be like a temporary challenger. I don't think she should be going for the women's title already, really. It's too soon.
No, she needs some more wins under her belt. I mean, she's a fantastic voice as well. She could carry a promo so well. She'd almost be like Alexa Bliss kind of in that division where she's carrying that gimmick over so well. And she's got the work to go with it. I think she could go far. But like you said, I think it's too soon for her. But I like the idea that Raw seems to be, re-establishing that division. They seem to be trying to make some new stars going in there. Mandy Rose, of course, was brought in this week as well. But there are rumours heading around in the rumour mill that along with her and Keith Lee, there's no long-term plans in place. Is this a bit worrying?
Yeah, it doesn't kind of surprise me. Obviously, stuff at the moment, as we said last week's show, that WWE are just making some plan. But we'll see as the draft goes on. It's exciting times, really. But if you've got any hopes of long-term storylines, it's probably not worth getting invested in, really.
No, there is a little bit of concern in that. But, of course, hopefully, we hope they'd have plans for Keith Lee because he's such a great talent. He could be the face of the company, in my opinion. I think I've said that on 1 or 2 videos in the past. probably about 100 at this point, but literally a big fan of Keith Lee. And also, I think Mandy Rose has something to offer on Raw. It'd be interesting to see if Otis will join her on Raw in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, let's see. I think the bigger thing is, please get that belt, not that belt, please get that briefcase off him. Really, I think that's what I'm praying for. Really, but that's another subject. But no, going forward to it, I think it's great to see a trade. It'd be interesting what that means for Otis. And as in terms of Keith Lee as well, I think, yeah, it was another big match he's been in. What I like about it so far is every match he's been in the main roster, it's had meaning. It's against somebody of that level above, which shows he's capable. So his promo this week, I felt it was a bit weird considering he's such a baby face. It was almost hinting that he'd do anything to win the belt, which is a heel element. But for me, they're still keeping him strong. So yeah, I'm a fan of what they've done so far. I'm getting used to the music now as well.
Yeah, I am as well, actually. I think it's just a weird blend with the bask in his glory then to this music. I kind of just like to just go bask in his glory and then just drop it and then just get the music in rather than trying to fade it in like a really bad DJ mix. That's the only thing I kind of felt with it. But you know, apart from that, I'm starting to grow on it as well. I mean, I didn't mind the new ring attire this week. I saw that Adam Pearce had a handful as well earlier this week. If you've seen some stills on social media as there as well. What are your thoughts on Adam Pearce very quickly? Because he seems to be playing almost like a general manager role without being anything on the company. He seems to be appearing everywhere.
There you go. That's the money question. Exactly what I was about to say. But yeah, he's almost a GM without being a GM. Obviously, ever since Pat Buck fell out with Nia Jax, he's almost taken that role. It's interesting to see what he does. For me, I think he's an interesting character. He's a good talker, so he does convey. I'm just wondering, really, if he's something to do maybe with Retribution. Really, it's a bit funny how he mentions them all the time. They get into the building every single week, and something like that. I think it's interesting, but I hope there's it'd be great to see them get a proper GM. If it's going to be him, fine, but you do need a GM on Raw and SmackDown. You don't need somebody that's meant to be head of security that can then book matches and do whatever they want.
No, I think you're right there. I think you're spot on with that. And honestly, I'm talking about it as well. I really feel that he actually could be a good GM, but I love the perfect segue. We're going to go into Retribution in a moment. But I love the idea that maybe he could be a part of it. You know, there's something we don't really think about with Adam Pearce, of like that higher power kind of feeling. What if it was an actual WWE official who was against the company from within? It's their way of getting, that would actually make sense. It clearly isn't going to happen, is it? But I mean, at the same time, Retribution, there's been a lot of news coming out with these guys again this week. There seems to be 5 steady names that are in and around there. It seems to be concrete knowledge now, but there's one name that we're having conflicting of rumour and reports that could be one spot. So if I say 4 of them, George, and then we can go on the 5th one and discuss it. Obviously, Dominik Dijakovic has been the rumour since minute 1. That seems to have been almost, he came out with the stable at this point, it feels. Mia Yim, Mercedes Martinez, Dio Madden, and then, well, the 5th name was either Shane Thorne, which I heard, but you heard another name.
Yeah, so Shane Thorne's one that we both heard quite a lot, but there's another one this week that if you compare the image of the 5th person on the end, it does look an awful lot like The Miz, and it kind of, it's out there, it's different. I think this stable are going to need somebody that's already on the roster. What you could say is with The Miz obviously, although he may not be connected to NXT or anything, he does have a point to prove. He does want to get some sort of momentum. And the early part of this sort of stable building, The Miz was all have some sort of power to be able to get people drafted, which would mean he must know somebody in Raw to be able to get Retribution potentially in the building. What's your thoughts on The Miz potentially being the leader or being part of this stable?
I just love the things we've discussed in the last few minutes, because the fact is, politely, nothing against Shane Thorne, if he's a regular listener. I just don't think he fits in this stable for me. It just doesn't work. He's had an opportunity on Raw. I think he would be good in some way on the main roster, but this for me doesn't feel it. It doesn't feel main event for me with Shane Thorne. The Miz is an underrated worker. He's someone that's been with the company for years. He's done things the company line. It would have that shock element and factor that we would expect that would come with Retribution. And the key things you mentioned there in our conversation we've had there is The Miz has the ability to talk to someone on Raw to get a trade. Adam Pearce, maybe? Yeah, it's getting weirder and weirder. I think the key thing about it, the positives this week from Retribution were numbers again. I like that. That was a shock. That was nice. I like the way they came out in the main event, which was what I've been wanting to do for ages. I thought the ending with them and the Hurt Business, I really enjoyed it. It took me back to 1997, where we had the Gam War between the Disciples of Apocalypse, the Nation of Domination.
and the Las Barricas. It reminded me of that. I wasn't a fan of them getting destroyed, but the trouble with this is this storyline is on the crisp of being, it could be great, but I think WWE, the way they've had all these people 1 minute turn up with loads of them, they're not enough. The payoff's got to be enough. And I think if it's just the 4 people you said originally, they're for me not enough really. I don't think they're all great wrestlers, but the backstory doesn't really work for me. None of them have been particularly mistreated. Like Mia Yim has been on a bit of a push in NXT. She hasn't really kind of lost. Mercedes Martinez, I know she's lost the odd matches, but she's had women's title matches recently as well. And if you look at Dominik Dijakovic, he lost to Killer Cross, Karrion Kross. That's not a bad thing, so it doesn't really work. But I'm intrigued to see. I think the interesting element of this is who the leader is, and that's really where the money is. If it is just Dijakovic, I'll be a bit underwhelmed, really. No offense to anybody.
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect points and perfect sense there. It's great elements, and it's almost brought a bit of buzz back to Retribution when kind of this time a week ago, I think we were discussing and I felt it was fading, but our conversation here has definitely brought a bit more life back into it for me. And like you said, I mean, they've been putting over the Hurt Business this week, and the Hurt Business looked like $1 million on Raw this week. I mean, the way that they, we want to say offered themselves to help Adam Pearce out, but literally, I mean, to be fair, like nothing comes to cheap. They don't do charity. And the way that Cedric, destroyed Ricochet, I mean, Ricochet sold that lumbar check like he was being completely murdered, really. Let's be fair. It looked absolutely brilliant. Cedric, for me, just very quick on the Hurt Business, feels like he's got the most to gain out of this stable for me because he's got the age and time on his side here. Do you think that those other members that all in their 40s, the other ones, but they could really, if things go the way that Cedric was, he did a great promo, a great match, looks $1 million with them by his side, attacking Retribution. Could the future be really bright for Cedric Alexander?
It's a great addition. I think it's a very clever move. That the payoff has been good. I think it gives that stable a further lift. I really like the way that these guys are arrogant. I like the way they're coming out to save Raw. Normally, I'm not a fan of the heel versus heel dynamic, but the way they did it with whole Adam Pearce. And I think the thing that makes this stable more than anything for me is MVP, despite his funny moment on Raw when he called Cedric Alexander Celtric Alexander in second for a second. He's a fantastic talker. For me, he's making that stable a great stable. And you've got Bobby Lashley. You've kind of got it all. Look what he's done. He's lifted Shelton Benjamin. He was in the periphery doing nothing. He's now on TV. Bobby Lashley was in that horrible angle with Lana going nowhere. He's now a star. And you've also got sort of Cedric Alexander now that's obviously going to be a star as well. I really like it. I think the only thing they do need to get a face dynamic that's going to counter this stable, which for me, if you're looking at people like Mustafa Ali and you're looking at people like Ricochet, they're not going to be enough. You need proper upper mid-card baby faces in a stable. A bit like the days of, do you remember the Attitude Era when we had the corporate ministry and then we had the union? Do you remember the union?
I do indeed, yes.
You kind of need that dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we do. We need some counterparts because otherwise it's just too many stables. And if they're all on the hillside, Drew can't fight them off on his own. Neither can Keith Lee. I mean, technically it was 6 guys that beat everyone this week up. So, I mean, it's, you do need those couple of strong, forces there with them to be able to take on these stables. So I would like to see that going forward. I want to see a face stable brought together as well. Maybe they, need to fight against Retribution, fight against the Hurt Business. Apollo, Ali, Ricochet, they can be part of it, but they need some heavy at the top there, someone to really carry them forward. Maybe Keith Lee is that guy. I don't know. Yeah,
that's a good shout. I think the key thing, what I want to see, last thing I was going to say about Retribution is what I want to see is, I want to see for once WWE paying off the next week. So how Raw should start next week is, I know you've got this Randy Orton and you've got this Drew match scheduled to happen. You need Drew and Keith Lee to be coming out saying, we want Retribution. You want to be following on what they've done. Because what's been happening before is Retribution have attacked people, like when they attacked Selena Vega, they attacked Andrade and that lot, and then the next week, nothing said about it. And it just kind of doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think it really works. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
No, I think you're right. It's continuity, isn't it? It's something that leads from the cliffhanger at the end of one show. You need it going into the start of the next. It can't be just forgotten about that Drew and Keith Lee were fighting off this. So you need the Hurt Business that want to, not just take over Raw Underground and leave it for a month. I want them to be going back after Retribution. There needs to be continuity, like you said there. And there has to be, what's also fun with it is that the dynamic of the face and heel was almost working together now to fight Retribution off and finding those twists and turns and what that's going to link to. Is it going to be like the invasion angle? Like we had with 2001, where people turn around and saying to themselves, well, I don't like you, but we need to work together here. Yeah. This sort of stuff here makes more credit to the storyline that we're getting.
No, I agree. I think you're spot on. I think that's the key thing. I think what you want to be doing is seeing people sort of, regardless of being face or heel, this is a threat to the WWE, hence they need to be treated. And I think it'd be interesting to see maybe a Hurt Business Retribution match somewhere along the line, because I think that's probably the route they should go down. I know it's 2 heel stables, but really you're going to have to do something with Retribution to keep them busy to the Survivor Series, in my opinion, now.
I agree that wholeheartedly. I really do. We'll move on very quickly. A couple of more Raw stories before we finish off. Dolph Ziggler and MVP were on commentary this week, as we just talked about MVP. I thought both did a good job standing in for Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I thought they did well. They didn't look out of place, that's for sure.
No, they did not. And I felt it was kind of nostalgic as well. It's like a WCW Nitro, seeing people change halfway through. Braun Strowman in Raw Underground. I mean, it was a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, as I said, of Brawl Underground, unfortunately. I think the problem with it is you've got Braun going. He's traded shows with no explanation. I know Raw Underground is a free-for-all, and anything happens, I understand that. But this is Braun Strowman that's challenged for the world title, and you're now putting him with Dabba-Kato that can't even get on the main show, if that makes sense. You can only get him Raw Underground. It doesn't really work for me. I don't really get what the payoff is. I think Braun is danger of falling very far down the card. Clearly, his recent work with The Fiend wasn't particularly sensational, as we've said before on previous podcasts. And I think this is just a pointless feud. I don't get what Braun adds to Raw Underground. It doesn't do anything really for me in that respect. What do you think?
No, I feel the same, really. I mean, if anything, if there's one match I'd turn and say from Raw Underground that I'd say I'd be interested in if there was a finish, it would be a Dabba-Kato, who's someone that have built from nothing to try and see how he would work against an established star of a Braun Strowman. But Braun, like you said, he's not had the strongest few weeks, really, and now he's just sort of randomly turning up here with no explanation. Is it another trade? Is it a one-off? We're not quite sure. Time will tell on this, but it certainly was something a bit different, I would say, this week. But my opinion, I've said it before, I say it again, Raw Underground, it needs to stop, and it needs to be dropped as soon as possible for me. It just isn't connecting. Yes, it's fresh. Yes, it's different. But where's the logic? I don't understand it. It's not even like watching UFC or MMA. It's just rules that are made by someone who's got a lot of money, who's got his own little club, who makes things up as he goes along. And for me, without any rules and actual guidelines of what we're actually watching, if there was rules, I think I'd get it. But it just seems to be stopped willy-nilly. There's no time limits. There's nothing. It's just, I don't know. It's just guys fighting in a little club room, and Shane decides what goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing is, I did hear something once. Somebody came up with a great idea. Sorry, I can't give a name. I don't actually remember who it was, but there was talk originally about sort of a theory of that you'd go into Raw Underground, and if you win matches in there, you'd get almost points / or coins or something. And you could then upskill the coins or trade the coins up to get title shots on the main roster. I think something like that would work, but the problem is when you've got Shane there with no explanation, what I would love to have seen, I would love to see Vince, I know, come out and say, well, I haven't authorized this on my show. Why is it happening and stuff like that? And we've not had that payoff. There's been nothing really used from this to get sort of anybody further up the guard. There's nothing to do really. Doesn't really get anything up. It has got Dabba-Kato on TV. It has got sort of the security guard on TV again. It's got people that weren't on TV. I give them that, but they're not doing anything with the people that are in there. It's almost like a place for people that can't really do anything with almost.
Yeah, exactly. Almost as if they've found their way into the room like a Big Brother house and need to really fight their way to find their way out again, and seem to get a black eye along the way if you're someone like Riddick Moss or Dolph Ziggler, it feels. But we'll have one more talking point, George, if you don't mind, before we close off the show this week. And I know this is one you're very much looking forward to, is the Mysterio family. Of course, it was a great steel cage match. Seth Rollins and Dominic Mysterio, I thought they did really well on Raw this week. Great TV cage match. For sure. But the interesting part was after the match, of course, Murphy ignored instructions, come to ringside. Seth Rollins destroyed him, went to the back after he destroyed him. And the Mysterio family went in to check on Dominic, of course, who'd lost the cage match. But of course, the daughter of Rey Mysterio, Aaliyah, first off, and the camera made sure to catch it, checked on Murphy. This definitely feels like storyline worthy here. And I wanted your thoughts here, because you've been saying for the longest time, the Mysterio family, there's going to be something happening. They're here for a reason. And you felt that someone may just turn, or something's going to be interesting with them there.
Yeah, I think the seeds are there. I think the fact that you're getting that, it's a nice twist. For me, I think it's a double bluff. I think we're going to see Angie, which is the mother of Dominic and Aaliyah, and wife of Ray. I think that'll be the person that turns, although it does look like it'll be Aaliyah turning for Murphy. I think Angie will blame Ray for this, and I think that's a fit, really. I think, but I don't know what the longevity is of Angie as a character. I'm not really too sure, but it's great they're doing these elements. This is an Attitude Era type storyline for me, and I think as a fan of wrestling, I think the Attitude Era is one of my favourite times. So going back to this, when you bring the family into it, it makes it a lot more interesting. It's a bit like a reality, a bit more realistic. What's your thoughts on the storyline so far?
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the idea of reality. I love the idea of it feeling personal. I think that's what you get here. You kind of have a connection because everyone has family, and everyone, regardless of their relationships with family, we all can connect in some way and see where these things go to. I'm sure there's many fathers that watch Raw and probably sit and go, with a daughter going with this disciple who, has been doing some awful, evil things. He put Aleister Black's eye out a few weeks ago, and yet she's looking out for him. What is she doing? It's like there is those things we just sit there and go, you can connect with that, and there's something engages you into that storyline. So for me, I think it's fascinating from that point of view. And I do think one day, we've discussed it before, but I think one day Dominic will turn on Rey Mysterio as well. And that day, because of the way they're doing this with family, it's going to hurt. We're going to feel it as viewers. And I think that has a thing of saying that this could be absolutely fantastic television on WWE if done and played right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're spot on. I think the connection's there. I think they've done a great job of getting Dominic over to the crowd. Although we've seen the Dominic and Seth match before, it was a great match. I'm really liking this whole Seth Rollins Seth Rollins equivalent of Brody Lee. He's doing that type of character where he's beating up Murphy and stuff. And I think it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. I think the Aaliyah part makes it a bit more fun. But I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next. I just hope they pay it off, really.
I really do as well. And I think with that camera shot this week, they have to be building towards something. So I'm hoping a payoff is in the future. But definitely, there was thumbs up all round from me from Raw with the cage match this week. And the hints, the seeds, they're there now. Let's see those plants grow. I want to see how this is going to develop next week on Raw. But, I think that we've done pretty much with the WWE Raw stuff now. So I'm going to quickly just touch on one or two minor from the indies here. And I want to just give a shout out to Ring of Honor really more than anything here, because Ring of Honor have brought back the Pure Championship. They've done a tournament as well. And the first rounds were done this week. And I just want to say the presentation was absolutely superb. I want to shout out to anyone that's watching this video, check out Ring of Honor, because literally the pure style and the rules, it's a very technical submission base of wrestling. It's pure wrestling. They've actually introduced their brackets of the superstars going to be taking place. We had a great match with Jay Lethal and Dalton Castle, which is a pay-per-view level match for Ring of Honor. We also had as well Jonathan Gresham, the Octopus, also taking on Wheeler Yuta, which Yuta is a great guy that's been trained by Drew Gulak as well. He's got a great future ahead of him, wrestling, only 23 years old. I love the fact with the rules of this as well, the rope breaks, you're only allowed 3 rope breaks in a 15-minute time limit match. If you touch the rope, you lose a break. You can't do it anymore. You can't lose a closed fist. If you do it twice, you're disqualified. And if someone interferes in the match, they are terminated from the company. It just feels it's one-on-one action, pure tournament style, the best of the best wins. And the way the camera work is presented is done in a way that you can't even tell that fans are not there. It's geniusly done. And I think that the Pure Championship is something that's been around previously in Ring of Honor. I believe AJ Styles was the first champion back in 2004, defeating CM Punk. Had champions like Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, Jay Lethal previously. He's the only one that could be the 2-time champ. You look at it and say, this is well presented. It's different to any company that's out there right now during a pandemic trying to give us something different. I think Ring of Honor from people deserves a chance. So for me, I wanted to put that play out there for them. I think that Ring of Honor are doing a fantastic job. But George, I want to get one more take on you very, very quickly before we close off. Impact Wrestling, we just have to talk about very quickly. Their match has been announced for Bound for Glory. The main championship match has been announced. We're going to get Eric Young, the champion, against Rich Swann. Of course, Rich Swann has been retired on a retirement angle. And of course, he's now going to be coming back. He's still meant to be injured. The match has been made because Scott D'Amore really felt the heartfelt promo. Do you think that Eric Young and Rich Swann is a main event worthy match for the Impact Championship at Bound for Glory?
Yeah, I think it will be a good match. I think it's great to see Eric Young sort of be given the belt and obviously having this run with him. I'm enjoying that. I think it's a match. I don't know whether it's main event level really. I would confess I don't really watch a massive amount of Impact Wrestling. Obviously, I know you watch it every single week, Steve. What's your thoughts of Rich Swann as a number one contender?
Well, it really took me by surprise when it comes to Slammiversary. I know we both watched that show and we both felt a bit, we want to say underwhelmed really, as it was the fourth guy. Not really because it was Rich Swann, but more because it wasn't an outsider coming in at that point. But we got Eric Young. They built the seeds from that moment. I just felt that this match was too soon. I would be surprised if Eddie Edwards was added back into the match. I'm not sure of his injury status after losing the championship. He was supposed to be worn down. His leg was injured in the match. So I don't know if it's meant to be real or storyline. This could turn into a freeway. I'd like to have seen a long-term booking because if Rich Swann's supposed to have been out for 7 months, he's now only been out for like 7 weeks. I want to see more done here, but maybe he's not going to be 100% going into the match. Maybe that's a way they can build it more for Eric Young to just get more heel heat and build this towards the January pay-per-view. I think potentially this could be a great storyline, and I think that's what's really positive about it. I think Impact has done a great job with these guys so far. I just wonder if this match being put together is too soon, but we won't find that out until pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, fair point. As I said, I haven't watched a massive amount of it, but clearly anything Eric Young does, Eric Young's always been a really good worker. I really rate him. I think him as a character, he's got some fantastic promos and skills, and I think it's great to see him land on his feet after being released by WWE.
Absolutely. If anything, he's doing some of his best work of his career right now. I really think he's doing a great job. Really love the EC3 and Moose feud that's going on as well at the moment with the hostage of the championship and Moose desperately trying to get it back in some ways. Just a little cameo mention here, just to mention that he was meant to have rung the demo god because Jericho had his championship stolen back in the day of what to do to get it back. I just thought that was a nice little touch as well. But before we go today, George, is there anything else you'd like to mention?
No, it's been another fantastic discussion. Thank you for having me on again. I've really enjoyed discussing it.
It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on as always, George, and it's great to talk pro wrestling with you. Thank you for everyone that's been watching as always. If you're a first-time viewer, please share it with a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way. You can hit the bell on YouTube and subscribe, know when new videos are coming out each and every time. Ask SCW is back on Sunday. George and I have had discussions, and if you don't mind, I'm going to make the announcement now. In the next week or two, we are going to be doing a retro, as that's been asked for by some of our viewers to do that. We are going to be doing WrestleMania 17 as a throwback review show. We're looking very much forward to doing that. We hope you guys will join us for that not if, but when we do it. We're looking forward to doing that. Hopefully, should be dropping, if not in the next week, definitely in the next 2 for sure. Of course, we're going to rewatch the show ourselves and then get our notes ready, and we'll come back. We'll be recording, and we'll be putting out for you, the viewing public, and we look forward to you guys watching, and we're thankful for you guys supporting the channel. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching. See you next time, and this has been SCW, the Wrestling Channel. This has been This Week in Wrestling. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. If you've been on podcast form as well, make sure you can follow us, you can subscribe, get involved, you know what to do. We'll see you next time here on YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere else you may be watching or listening.